All right. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for making it this afternoon, and hope you guys out there are hanging in with us. I think break is right after our session. I'll introduce myself. My name is Mario Tapia. I am a community leader here in Silicon Valley, in New York and Los Angeles, and lead a group called MobileMonday. And that we're about 35,000 developers and entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, looking at new technologies, focusing on mobile tech, and a little bit on bots now. So that's kind of like my background, and been in the industry for about 18 years now. And let's start with Anamita.
Hi, everyone. Anamita Guha. I'm with IBM Watson. I work on a team called the Developer Labs. We're kind of a scrappy startup solution within IBM where we're trying to do kind of all the cool buzzwords, AR, VR, IoT, all of that. That's my team.
Hello, I'm Max. I'm the co-founder of Spectrm, and we have a bot platform for media companies, brands, and agencies.
Hi, I'm Kenton Langstroth. I run ad product for Intersection, which is a connected cities company. Previous to Intersection, I was at Interpublic Group and launched a number of text and voice-based experiences. So excited to be here at the Bot Conference.
Hey everyone, I'm Vera Tzoneva. I work on the partnerships team for the Google Assistant. So the ways that partners like you can build what we call actions. Our developer platform is called Actions on Google, on top of the Google Assistant, which is live on the home device, but is also live across other devices like Android and Pixel.
Cool. So I want to cover the ecosystem in general. So we want to look at platforms. What are the marketplaces looking like? And what are you guys as developers missing out on? Let's also look at the platforms, how to monetize, because I think that's the next big question for this ecosystem to evolve is making money, right? That's a good thing. So let's get started. So we have platforms, Watson. We have Google Assistant. We have Amazon Alexa. We have Microsoft Cortana. We have Apple Siri, and probably quite a few others in the marketplace. How many people here in the audience are supporting a voice-assisted platform today? Right? How many people aren't supporting today? Oh, okay. So let's see if you guys maybe change your mind about what the opportunity. I don't know if you guys saw the news lately with Amazon and some of their latest platforms. So voice assistant now has a head. So that's kind of interesting. So which platforms does the panel? What do you support today? And maybe some of you guys are already platforms, so you guys can talk about that. But let's start here with Anamita.
Sure. So at IBM Watson, all platforms are built on the Watson Conversation Service. And then with that, we have other Watson technologies that you can use to make it voice-enabled. So we have a tone analyzer that will tell you kind of what sentiment the person is in when they're speaking. We have speech-to-text and voice-to-speech. So you'd want to essentially use all three of those in conjunction with the Watson Conversation Service to build out a chatbot. And then if you want to make it more voice-assisted, you would use the others. And then in terms of platforms, we support all of them. We'll go to Google Home. We'll go to Echo, everything from SMS to robots to anything that you want to build a chatbot on. We'll support that.
We're actually supporting Facebook Messenger, or Line, Slack, Kik as well. But I think so far we're doing only Alexa, but we're experimenting with Google. But so far Alexa was, because of the bigger scale, more interesting for us.
Yeah, on the agency side, we've dabbled across developing on most, if not all, of the platforms that you mentioned. Commercially, most of the voice experiences that we've launched have been on Alexa Skill Kit. And then on the chat side of things, primarily through Facebook and some Google-acquired startups called API.ai.
Awesome. So we at Google often hear a little bit of a misconception that when somebody launches an app on top of the Assistant, that it actually is an integration into Google Home. And the truth is that what you're actually implementing is an integration to the Google Assistant. And so our developer platform, Actions on Google, does exactly that. And we often hear kind of, and we want to extract away just voice versus building these conversational interfaces, where voice, of course, is optimized for something like a speaker, where you don't have your hands and you want to be able to get a recipe or be able to hear the news or hear music. But the truth is that assistance works across different devices, and it sometimes can be optimized for having a visual interface. And so for us on the platform side, our goal is to make sure that when you're building something on top of the assistant, that you're actually able to get distribution across those surfaces, and then they're optimized for the actual surface.
And Anamita, you mentioned some other platforms. So other than like home devices or mobile phones, these platforms are starting to appear on different things, like cars, right, for example. Give us some examples of where, at least for the platform folks, where are you integrating into? What other options other than phone and PC and laptop and some of the other messenger platforms?
Yeah, I could talk about this for 45 minutes. So many. So we have simple things like smart whiteboards, where in meeting rooms it can be like erase end meeting, and then the entire whiteboard would be erased. We see a lot in, I guess, besides home devices like microwaves, all of that, there's robots. So when we first launched IBM Watson to be voice assisted, we actually created this home kit called TJBot. Stands for Thomas J. Watson. And basically you can take the bot and build it to do anything and respond in any sort of task you have. And now we've seen that expand into other use cases like virtual concierges. So if you're at a hotel, you can walk up to a robot essentially and say, hey, I want to do this today, and then go to this hotel that's friendly for my 5-year-old. And then it'll help communicate with you what to do. And then the other one I'd like to highlight is AR, VR. I think there's a lot of really cool applications happening with voice-assisted communication and chatbots, especially in VR and in gaming. So you're building something and you're creating this virtual reality around you, and you say, hey, build this or shoot this person or whatever it may be. But you can do it with your voice very quickly, and you're very immersed.
Yeah, to answer this question, so first and foremost, this is a consumer product, right? There is a user that is asking a computer to do things for that user, right? It's a pretty amazing time for users. You can ask a computer to help you make breakfast, to help you get from one place to another, to help you even clean your apartment. And so when the user is talking to the Google Assistant, that should be what the primary interaction is, right? And all of the other surfaces are fundamentally easier ways for the user to get their personal assistant. And so last year we started with the Google Assistant live on the home device, the speaker, on the Pixel, the Google phone, and within Allo. And then recently we started rolling out the Assistant across Android devices. And so the reach is interesting, the different surfaces, the modalities are interesting, but fundamentally what is different here is that a user is asking a computer to do things for them, and that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, I would say like the only thing to add there is, obviously I think home and car are certainly like no-brainers for deploying these experiences, just because it's clean. Obviously, there isn't too much ambient noise. One of the things that we're trying to solve for at Intersection is how potentially to deploy conversational interfaces in public space and what that user experience is like, and how identity management might work. So our aspiration is to try to figure that out, but we have our work cut out.
I want my personal Jarvis. How many people want their personal Jarvis? Question on just again for the platform folks: how fast is voice enabled growing? I mean, if we were able to, I don't know if you guys have analytics on it, but I'd be curious to see the engagement. Chatbots versus voice-enabled assistants, what the adoption's looking like.
We do have stats. So before the assistant even launched, we had voice capabilities in Android, right? So you can say, okay, Google, and you'd be able to trigger certain actions within your phone, like making a call or even starting a run. And what we noticed is that, and this is the stat today, is that 20% of queries on mobile are via voice. And that's pretty staggering. It surprised even us. It only came to be a reality for me when my little brother was in the kitchen. He's 22, so excuse him, but he asked his mobile device, "Okay, Google, how do you make scrambled eggs?" And I was like, wow, my brother is 22 and doesn't know how to make scrambled eggs, first. Second, what's interesting here is that, of course, he doesn't want to use his hands. He just wants to get an answer very quickly. He doesn't even need something that's visual. And the point is that we're at a point in technology where we have capabilities in natural language, right? We have capabilities in what Google has is the knowledge graph, right? Understanding answers from the web. We have capabilities in machine learning, and not in this example, but we have the ability to understand what's in an image, for example. So as these queries are coming in, we can actually trigger results for them. And so fundamentally, we do see pretty significant queries coming from voice as a result.
Yeah, and I've seen that in my personal experience. I've seen it's skewing younger, but definitely younger demographic is using voice for quick searches for where's, et cetera, on the maps and things like that. And for me, I was like, wow, I'm so used to typing, but it seemed a lot easier. Wow, that was quick.
Yeah. I think on the usage side, the other thing that I've read recently is if you remove even smartphones from the equation, 1 in 5 Americans will make a voice request through some form of assistant. So whether that's obviously Home or Echo or whatever. So I thought that was rather impressive that roughly 60 million people are having some sort of voice experience per month.
So a question for Max and Kenton, just get some feedback on, because both of you are engaged, when you're with IPG, you engage with brands, you engage with probably larger companies that wanted bots built. On average, what is the percentages that you were seeing that were chatbot related versus voice assisted? Is there a ratio that you saw, or did that conversation of voice assisted come up with clients?
I think it's right now it's starting to be the same. So they want to be on every new platform. So they're saying, okay, can I have a messenger bot and can I have an Alexa skill, for example? And first, you have to serve both needs actually, but you cannot. And this was a discussion here before. You should adjust the content for each and every channel. So you're not kind of say, okay, I built you this one thing and we plug it in here and that's it and we're done. So we see at least the same demand for both actually, because it's the demand. It's a new platform and I want to be there and I want to figure out what's going on there. And I think that is right now in the moment the first thing brands and publisher want.
Yeah, and I would say building off your point, Max. A lot of the development platforms are taking that to heart. So on the Amazon side of things, Lex is now open to developing, both, voice experiences and messaging experience. And, Google, operates in a very similar way on the assistant side. So, we're starting to see development platforms sort of enabling us to build sort of a knowledge center and experiences that then can be optimized for each input.
Did you have something, Anamita? Yeah. So we go to platforms. Let's see. Next, let's talk about marketplaces. So I'm curious, if your audience, if you were to build a voice-assisted bot, would you call it a skill regardless of the platform? I'm curious. So skills basically very specific to Alexa? And if you did it for another platform, what would you call it? A bot? How many raise your hand? Would you want to call it a bot? A chatbot? A voice-assisted chatbot? So skills maybe skills won't be the. What are you seeing?
Our platform is actions on Google. So today you build an action.
Okay.
We call it intense on Watson.
Intense.
Yeah.
All right. So a next obvious progression of an ecosystem is the formation of a marketplace, and we are seeing this in forms of skills, apps, bots. Intention.
Actions.
And actions. Wow. I love emerging technologies because things haven't settled yet. So on Alexa, we have over 10,000 skills. Cortana. Actually, Cortana I heard skills being announced, but that was, I think, tomorrow at Build, some announcements will be made. on a marketplace. I think Siri has limited actions. And I had a question. So for Google Assistant, do you have a marketplace like Play? Is there something in the future for that?
Yeah, so it goes, again, back to the user, where what is the user in need of? And fundamentally, a user is asking for a computer to be able to help them either with answers or with task completion, right? So you're asking a computer to help you with your day or achieve something. And for us, there's a ton of different sources for something like this. We started off, of course, with search, and so today we index the knowledge graph, which has 1 billion entities in it, right? So if you ask something like, how tall was George Washington, we're able to understand that George Washington is an entity, and then be able to extract height and be able to answer. And then you might say, how tall was his wife? And then we understand that there's another entity, it's Martha. It's associated with George Washington. So it's fundamentally, we take the information we have from search and are able to actually put it into the assistant. So that's one capability. Other capabilities are things like being able to book a cab or order pizza or be able to turn on your lights. And this is where, and this is why we launched a platform that is open for development, because there's a bunch of tasks that a user is asking for that our partners can fulfill on, and we can actually take the user who's looking for them to you. And so that launched in December, and it's been growing very rapidly, and we're seeing that users are engaging quite significantly with those types of things. For us, what's really, really a goal of ours is discovery. And I'll be honest, there's a ton of work to do here, but already today on the platform, if you ask something like, I want to meditate, we look at the different actions that can fulfill on that ask. We look at the actions that can provide the user with meditation. So then we say, do you want to meditate with Headspace? And then if the user says, yes, I've never heard of Headspace before, but I'll try it out if it's being recommended to me. And then we hand over the interaction to Headspace, and then Headspace owns that dialogue end to end. And so for us, what's really interesting is as these actions are getting built and they're getting higher and higher quality, and a user's in need of something that you guys might be building, how we actually make that connection to you.
All right, so that kind of answered a little bit, but yeah, discovery is so for you, Max, and the rest of the panel. Yeah, I mean, how are you going to deal with discovery with all these voice assistants, because it is pretty crude right now, and even with Alexa, I still have, I'm a challenge. I'm very challenged for discovery because it's so full now, right? So curious.
Yeah, I think because here are a lot of bot developers, so that is the point. I think the most interesting point we have right now in voice assistants, because if you look back in history when we started with browsers, with Netscape and so on, there was nothing. They were not shaping, so we're just typing in and start to explore and so on and so on. So there, we're not shaping how we discover, how the retention is working for this websites. If we went to mobile, that was changing because Google and iOS are continuously shaping how we use apps and so on. And I think now we're moving to voice, where it's not visible. It's much more relying on the hardware. So actually, Google and Amazon are going to decide what kind of service we will use, because the discovery is so important there. And I think we get a taste of that if you swipe left on your phone. You have with the Pixel, you have with the new iPhone, you have AI sorted services. You can scroll down, and that is what we can see, how actually both operating system are unbundling apps and putting them into their own control. So it's very hard for services, for brands to control how these services are appearing. And the same, we're going to see the same for voice. So in this case, maybe Headspace is the market leader. It's very clear that they will direct us to Headspace. But what about a news outlet? Will they direct us to the New York Post, the Washington Post, the New York Times, or whatever? So I think that is a crucial part where the decisions of the platform will decide about the success of developers and the success in the end of the platform. I think that's a very, very crucial part we should discuss very, very seriously.
Yeah, it's probably because the panel in itself to talk about discovery.
Yeah, I think also, there are plenty of owned and paid media opportunities to explore to drive audience and to drive engagement, especially.
Oh, I have to pay again?
I know, you have to pay again.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's, and Google is, obviously exploring, opportunities there. Amazon through their media group, does a great job in sort of trying to, highlight skills. And we're starting to see that obviously on the chatbot side. Facebook's doing a pretty good job of trying to crack discovery through paid channels. I think there's a great owned opportunity as well. A number of the brands that we work with that are either launching voice experiences or chat experiences, or doing comprehensive sort of press strategies, and are using all their other social channels where they're acquiring audiences to drive them to those experiences. So yeah, owned and paid media are certainly viable and proven in driving engagement and audience.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit, but still about marketplaces. I think this is more of after you've created the bot, the marketplaces that have been brought up. And I actually see with more open source code out there that there will be marketplaces for bots already created. And you'll be able to go in and download a bot that someone else has created and then modify it to fit your need. And 95% of it's done, and you have to do the rest of the 5%. And then that would be another marketplace.
Yeah, we look at it a little bit differently than other platforms in that when we introduce something like Headspace, it's a hard introduction, right? So there's actually a ding, and then Headspace comes on, and you as a user should know that you are then in dialogue with Headspace, right? And Headspace actually owns that dialogue end to end. And we've had partners like Progressive is a really good example of this, where they've actually hired voice actors, and they've started building an interaction with the user that is uniquely branded as Progressive, right? And I'm pretty excited about this area of design where you are no longer building a brand just based on the reputation of your brand, your logo, your customer service, like these other dimensions, but you now are building a brand based on a person, right? And that's something at Google we actually encourage, not necessarily the person part, but the part where you own the dialogue end to end. And so our goal, and it's not such a departure from the way that the web worked, where you owned your website. We want to make sure that you have the tools to be able to build a great conversation, but ultimately it's owned by you.
Yeah, and I would say, thinking about it from a creative agency perspective, that's like music to their ears, right? They have this documentation that's in a vault somewhere, brand personality, brand voice that somehow informs all of these, TV commercials that maybe are marginally good, which now they can bring to bear to actually, really think through and to iterate and to figure out, like, what is the right voice for, Marriott versus,
I want John Oliver to be my voice. Well, that's interesting, though, because on the UI UX portion, that is analogous to the accent, the voice itself. Like, hello there, hi, welcome to Headspace. Yeah, it's interesting.
Very good Andy impression.
Yeah, no. Do you have anything?
No, I think, but that is the future, actually. If I'm asking, something, and, Bruce Willis is chatting with me, I think that's a great experience for the future.
Yeah, I can imagine also The Rock, talking. Let's move on from marketplaces to development platforms to create for the creators. So one is from the agency perspective as well. Is there a market for agencies to build these voice-enabled skills and actions?
Yeah, I think so, and I think their competitive advantage is that they're they have direct access to the client into a lot of that documentation around. They own that documentation around personality and voice, and obviously have a lot of impact around the media plan and how that all comes together. And I think again, to have a really successful voice experience that can reach an audience at scale, it needs to be integrated across the media plan and across various marketing channels. So I think agencies are very well positioned to do that. There's a certain subset that have the right talent or teams in place to build those experiences. I was lucky enough on the IPG side to have access to teams like that. I think outsourcing is a bit of a mistake, but that tends to happen as well.
So curious. Okay, in the app economy, you get a cheap app, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. So at IPG, what did you see? What were the contracts looking like?
Yeah, I would say that was right. I mean, I think the thing that we were always trying to avoid was one-offs. So just like if you were going to invest in building, a great app, that's a long-term commitment. There's an evergreen strategy. You're continuously trying to make improvements. You're trying to have a feedback loop with your users. That was the philosophy as well when designing or deploying conversational interfaces, whether it's, chatbots or voice. What does a V1 look like? What are those KPIs that we've assigned to it? And how can we use user response reviews and the data that we're collecting on the back end to continually to tweak that? Especially on the voice side of things, because, trying to effectively deliver, whether it was, an education experience or even a commerce experience, one or two missteps can really sort of, make the whole experience crumble, and it can really upset users. So I think it's one of those things where it needs to be a more evergreen strategy. So to answer your question, maybe start small, but, try to sort of, build in a contingency where you can make those optimizations over time. So it can get up to the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Question, Vera, for Progressive, when they did their action, did they do it in-house or did they outsource?
I can't talk about specifically Progressive, but I can tell you that if we are kind of focused on the promise of these types of platforms, right? We're all pretty excited about a world where I can go about my day and machines do things for me, right? And I think if we go back to the fundamental goal of quality, because everything is going to stem from quality. Your distribution, your discovery, your engagement rates are going to stem from how quality of an experience you build. The truth is we're so early that it's going to take a village. And yes, we acquired API.ai with the goal of letting partners build really great conversational interfaces that are built on their natural language capabilities. But we also have a lot of channel partners that work with us that are also, and we often point partners to them who have really great capabilities that help launch quality actions. And we'll continue to do that. And sometimes it's API.ai, sometimes it's another one of our partners. But we're of the opinion that this should be open, this is going to take a village, and we're just really excited about getting to that future state that I think many of us are excited about.
Awesome. You guys have any input on that?
I think the decision for bot developers or for startups, how much they should charge for that is whether you think the return of invest will be there very soon. Mm-hmm. So that could be an argument. If you don't think so, it could be an argument for charging not so much because you don't want to shy them away or chase. Because if they don't see that, we had this in the panel before, it's often like the chicken and egg problem. If you don't invest too much, you won't get so many users. So that could be the problem with if you're charging them more, but that could be a higher commitment. So you iterate more, and so you get finally a good experience. So that's why I think charging more could be a good idea.
So another question is the difference between a skill or action versus building a mobile app. What are the differences?
Never built a mobile app.
Oh, wow.
So I think the way I think of skills actions versus the mobile app is you call someone on the phone and you're in an automated voice system and you press 1 to do something, press 2 to do something else. And I feel like that's very paralleled to this concept of chatbots or virtual assistants, all of that. Whereas a mobile app can have multiple decision trees and a lot of trajectories that you can go through. And
I love this analogy. I'm going to use this now because it makes a lot of sense. because I'm an old dinosaur in the ecosystem. So, yeah. So before voice, there were IVRs. Were very popular.
Exactly, yeah.
1-800-TELL-ME. There's a lot. That's a Microsoft company now, but yeah, it goes back pretty far. I had a question for Google and IBM. What support are you giving developers? Talk about the platforms that you have, and what resources are you providing developers, and is it free?
I can start. Yeah. Okay. So IBM is placing a huge emphasis on developers. That's one of our core focuses this upcoming year and next year, and probably beyond that. And we're kind of in the early stages of all the support that we're giving our developers. But we have a IBM Developer Cloud, and if you go to that web page, you'll see all of our APIs, anything that you can use, all our SDKs there. And we have the documentation, we have webinars, we have sample apps built out, we have the community. So it's kind of become this one-stop shop for the developers, and then you can also talk to an actual human and not a bot while you're there too. So that's what we're offering now, and I envision that to evolve in the coming months even.
I kind of alluded to this a little bit in my last answer, that our primary focus, even in our partnerships effort, is on enabling partners to build really quality experiences. And it stems from things like natural language understanding. So a lot of the capabilities are going to be available through API.ai. We highly encourage partners to check it out. But then also we have great partnerships with other partners, including our hosts here for analytics. Yeah. And so we'll continue to do that, and we also want to do it on a per vertical basis, right? So a solution for a music partner is going to be different from a home automation partner, that is going to be different from someone who's like, you know what's really unique about this interface? This, and we want to especially focus on how we can solve for this problem. Like across those types of partnerships, we really want to be supportive because the exciting thing here is going to be the innovation that sits on top of what an assistant could look like for a user.
Thank you. Let's move on to monetization, because I think that's where an area of like, yeah, this is great, bots, and this is awesome, and hey, when am I going to get some money? If I'm not developing it, right? If I'm at a dev house, there's some, I'm building a bot, whatever. It's like, you're going to monetize it? I don't care. I'm making my money. But eventually, that question, and how do we make money? And I think the previous panel also alluded a lot to it on helping the developer ecosystem monetize and incentivize them. So what will advertising look like, or rather sound like, for voice activated in the future?
I was kind of interested to hear about how that was going to work on the sort of pass off side of things, right? So if you have Andy and the Headspace crew sort of getting a referral from
instead of AdWords, it's ad. Yeah, I guess it'd be.
They'll come up with something.
This will be AdWords, maybe
a little more buzzy than that. But I think that's a really interesting model, because we were sort of having a quick chat before the panel, and this idea of asking permission as opposed to sort of pushing advertising seems to be, it's like polite advertising seems to be like a great sort of best practice for a voice interface. And it seems like that's in effect what you guys are doing when it's meditation, and here's maybe 1 or 2 options, maybe 3 is the magic number, and then that exchange happens. How are you thinking about, I guess, like monetizing that piece of it?
Who's on the panel and who's the moderator now? No, the truth is we don't right now have a monetization model on actions on Google on the Assistant. Are we thinking about the various ways? Absolutely. And the truth is, like, I spend a lot of my time talking directly to partners about things like this. Yes, there's a discovery model for new leads. Yes, there's an ads model that could exist here. Yes, there's a marketplace. There's a ton of different things, and maybe there's something even that we're not thinking of. But we don't want to yet create a situation where the user is still trying to get comfortable with this product and then be kind of confused about a certain ad that comes on or a monetization model that they're just not familiar with. Yes, we'll learn from what we've done as a whole kind of community in the past, and we'll continue to test and iterate, and we'll make mistakes for sure, but we'll also learn from them. And I think the monetization is crucial. But we also just want to monetize. Just one quick additional note is we also want to monetize when it's actually going to be meaningful for our partners. Like we don't want to like monetize for the sake of monetizing, and so that's something that we're thinking of as well.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. So first one is I think sponsored, typical monetization models, they'll probably continue in bots. But I think the other thing that I think about sometimes is maybe there doesn't need to be any monetization. When the Apple Watch came out, I was working in advertising, and I remember everyone was like, we need to build Apple Watch ads. I have yet to see an Apple Watch ad. I don't know if you guys have. So maybe bots won't have ads, and that's fine, right?
I don't think that's fine. But I think for the okay, how many people in the audience who develop bots and stuff, would you like to be paid? Is that, raise your hand if you're, yeah, right. It's an obvious evolution of an ecosystem, but also it doesn't have to be intrusive like pop-ups and things like that. But maybe Ken, you might have some industry thoughts on, it's because you've been thinking about this.
It's not really like an ad model approach. I think it's just to say like a lot of the clients that we work with consider the skills, the experiences that they're building ads. I mean, they're effectively, trying to earn your attention so that you interact with them, and they're not going to try to hard sell you, but obviously they want to ensure that their brand is top of mind, and that the information that they're disseminating somehow convinces you over time that you might want to subscribe to their product. So I think a good example of this is Johnson & Johnson has an allergy product called Zyrtec. They have an API that they've built that provides, hyperlocal allergy forecasts. So we've effectively, turned that into an Alexa skill, and you can ask for the allergy cast. It's currently like a gap within like the traditional weather that you would get as part of flash briefing. And for them, it's a sort of brand reinforcement. And hopefully down the line, like you'll have preference for Zyrtec over, one of their competitors. They're obviously paying us to develop that experience and to maintain it and to monetize it over time. We in turn are, sort of working with our platform providers to ensure that they're compensated appropriately. Like it's branded content. Yeah.
I'm just curious to see if is there a fart app that's on voice assistants yet? I mean, those were kind of big in the in the app economy, and that's where developers would have some ads on it and then did retire. That was back in the day.
That stinks.
Yeah, it definitely stinks. Yeah, but it'd be interesting to hear voice-activated games and things like that, and poker and stuff like that. Yeah, that's right. I guess I remember hearing celebrity voice impersonated, and it'll be like Sean Connery playing poker with you or something.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing tons of really awesome actions being developed. Two of my favorites one is Dr. Dog, and it helps you with questions related to like what your dog can eat or not. And so like you can ask Dr. Dog if like your dog can eat cake, and then it answers. It's really, really awesome. And then the second one that I really love is somebody built an action for Jaden Smith quotes. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, like he has a reputation for like saying like really like somewhat spacey things. And so like I was playing with it yesterday or something, and I was like, talk to. So the most reliable way to invoke a action is by a set of pre-established things like talk to Jaden Smith quotes or speak to Jaden Smith's quotes or at Jaden Smith. So I was playing with it, and I was like, talk to Jaden Smith quotes. And it's like, sure, here's a quote. Have you ever noticed that trees never frown? trees are always smiling. I just like burst into laughter. It's like, why is this like a thing that I can get on my Google Home? And it's
but those are the
kinda
novelty,
awesome.
Kind of experiences that I think when you have a new platform, people experiment with.
Yeah, but it's like
evolve.
awesome. Think about the web. I don't know if you guys remember, like one of the standout first websites was like that website with the hamster dance, and then like I don't know if you guys remember this. Like this is like where we're at right now, right? Like we're at the point where people are experimenting, trying things,
Sure.
and like learning. And so one of the major benefits of being on these platforms early is this technical know-how, this like learning with the platform. And I think that will, as it grows pretty significantly, as we distribute across devices, as users continue this already trend that they're on to ask their computers to do things for them, like you'll be one of the kind of the ones that are going to be there to help the user because you've learned how to do it and you're already there. So it's kind of one of the primary.
Yeah, and I saw it with mobile. The maturation of the industry evolved, over the last 15 years to, technology was number one, playing with the technology, and then learning about engagement, and then how to keep users engaged was kind of like a progression of over time. And then learning how to make, hey, this is all great, but the dirty little secret about mobile was you didn't make a lot of money. Some people did. Some unicorns made money, but most of the ecosystem didn't. We got 5 minutes left, and I just wanted to wrap it up with one final question. And this is for everyone on the panel. What's your vision of a voice-assisted future?
Okay, so I think of it in terms of kind of human development, right? So the first 3 years of a child's life is very pivotal in how they learn to communicate and interact with the world around them. And I feel like that's where we are with chatbots right now and with voice-assisted future, right? So we are learning how everyone's using it, and we're learning how people are communicating. And I think in 3 years, I actually think we'll be pretty well off and we'll know how to speak exactly with chatbots.
People will be exposed to it.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think hardware will somehow disappear a little, and we will use much more, our voice and so on. I think that's just a normal development, and I think everybody will have a very personal assistant. But there will be also, things where I can use my voice, which is just very natural. For example, buying a train ticket or something like this. That is also would be very great. Is just to say, hey, I want to go there, and then it's just coming out, or I have it on my phone. That would be much better.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of augmented intelligence, this idea of artificial intelligence somehow delivering information to us, whether through voice or text or whatever the next computing platform is going to be to make us more efficient or I guess a bit smarter, is intriguing. I think from a human perspective, the thing that I'm interested in is how can we, through conversational interfaces powered by, AI or whatever, engineer more serendipitous experiences for people to nudge them to do more novel things. I think novelty is more satisfying, and a lot of us maybe get wrapped up in routine. If, technology can help us live more satisfying lives, that's kind of exciting. That's a future that I'd like to participate in.
Awesome. Yeah, if you really think about it, your smartphone isn't very smart, and it should know things that can help you a lot better than it does. It should understand your context, and it should know a certain need that you might have, and it should be able to deliver that for you without you having to do the work. And so the assistant is very aptly named as an assistant, but it should also just be able to get out of the way. And it should be able to really understand your needs and be able to do that in a way that, of course, a user is in control. And so I am really excited about a future where I can be a lot more productive and be able to achieve a lot more and be able to spend more time with my family, get more done at work, do all of those things collectively. Without having to do as much friction, as much work to get that done.
Thank you. I think we're going to field a couple of questions. If you guys have a question, please raise your hand. And Artie, you want to be the gopher?
Cool. I have one quick question on the way over. What do you guys feel about? How do you feel about asynchronous communication in voice? The device proactively reaching out to users.
You took my question. Oh.
To follow on that question, yeah, so that's a big difference between kind of text-based chatbots and voice ones, right? The text one can say, hey, I have this thing, and the voice one waits for you to respond to it. Do you see a future in which the voice pings you in your home and says, hey, by the way, this is going on, or this is interesting?
Yeah, I kind of started with this at the beginning of the panel where we should extract out voice, actually, because voice is very specific to a specific device. And there's going to be optimizations, visual or text-wise, that will happen when you're interacting with the assistant, in our case, on mobile. And so to answer, Artie, in your question, yes, like there's tons of use cases that are very clear where you might want to be notified if something is getting delivered, or if your car is here, or somebody's trying to reach you, or if there's an emergency, and we're doing it really thoughtfully. But I wouldn't get kind of like, this is just voice, this is just voice. Like, it's really much more than that.
Yeah, I have an example of a use case right now. It's a building sensor IoT type thing that's using Watson, and it's monitoring health of coal mine workers, and it looks at sensors in someone's helmet. And if the temperature goes off, then the chatbot, voice-enabled system, whatever, will talk to you and be like, hey, temperature is approaching this. Tell them to leave. So it will communicate with you.
We have one more over here.
Oh. Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, I think, it's also about building a relationship with technology and sort of your preferences and sort of how and when you should be notified, and like when even a proactive move or sort of response should be sort of generated. It might not be like the first date or the honeymoon period. Like it might be 6 months into like your relationship with your personal virtual assistant. So like, I think there's a relationship factor too, and I think we should take cues from that.
Yeah, just to follow up on this, I think it will be directly like this. For example, now I have to ask, what's the weather outside when I'm starting my morning? But it will be in the future, I will just say probably good morning, and they will say, hey Max, by the way, you need an umbrella, and this and this and that, traffic is that and that, and so on and so on. So I think that is the future. So there will be also push content to you based on your preferences.
So this might be maybe a follow-up question. I'll find you afterwards. But I'm kind of trying to understand the signifiers and affordances of voice, right? So like within the web, within apps, even within a chatbot, within a platform, they have buttons, they have form fields, things like that signify what we can do with them. What have you discovered within voice? There's like the action words of OK Google. There's pauses in between statements, things like that we can kind of listen. But what else have you discovered within voice?
I'll be totally honest with you. Like some of the things are so rudimentary where we actually map it to like a real person-to-person dialogue, and then it's like I've seen these designs. I promise you, where it's like somebody comes up to someone and you like have to acknowledge that the person exists, right? And you have to say like hi, like. And then we actually build that into some of our recommendations in VUI design. It's like make sure that you acknowledge like that you are talking to someone and that you introduce yourself and what you're able to even do, right? Like, and so we have guidelines around that. We also have guidelines around, and I heard this as a discussion on the prior panel, where sometimes like you don't actually want to talk to anything, you just like want something to get done. And so it's like we actually recommend like certain transactional interactions to be like fast, right? And so there are things like that. And then there are some interactions that are entertainment based. Like if you're in a dialogue with someone and you're not looking for a transaction, you're looking to like be entertained. Like I mentioned like one of the actions that launched in Jaden Smith quotes. There's like of course a bunch of other entertainment based actions that we get, and like be personable, be fun, be have a brand, right? Some of the things I was talking about before. So it's really like, honestly, like start with basics. What is the interaction that you want to have, and try to build that into the dialogue.
So, on that note, we just we appreciate all you guys being on the panel. Yeah, time's up. Sorry, politely, time's up. But yeah. Thanks everyone. Yeah. Thanks.